Probably the most influential were Buddy Holly and Chuck Berry. So Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly were very good writers.
What if everything you know about Paul McCartney's musical genius is a lie? Behind the charming smile and timeless melodies lies a truth so shocking it could rewrite music history. The man who gave us Yesterday and Hey Jude didn't just write these songs, he stole them. Not in the way you think, but through a calculated, almost ruthless absorption of his idol's greatest secrets. "I'm just a good thief," McCartney allegedly confessed in a private 1976 interview. The trick is knowing who to steal from and how to make it your own. Today, we're exposing the 6 artists whose music Paul dissected, replicated, and reinvented to build his legacy. He practiced raw vocal techniques until his throat bled. He studied the band that provided the actual blueprint for the Beatles' entire existence. These influences reveal a side of McCartney most fans never see, and the artist who shaped him more than any other. It's not who you'd expect. The truth will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the Beatles. Number 1. Elvis Presley. When 14-year-old Paul McCartney first heard Heartbreak Hotel in 1956, his world completely changed. "I couldn't speak for nearly an hour afterward," Paul later confided. "It was like lightning struck. I instantly knew my life's purpose." This wasn't mere admiration, it was possession. Billy Kinsley, Paul's Liverpool classmate, witnessed the change firsthand. He showed up the next day with slicked back hair, practicing that Elvis lip curl between classes. He wasn't just imitating Elvis, he was absorbing his essence. His determination was almost scary. Few Beatles fans understand how this obsession shaped Paul's musical vision. Before Elvis, he focused only on playing instruments. After Elvis, he realized physical presence, swagger, and danger mattered equally. This insight formed his magnetic stage persona throughout his career. The relationship reached its peak in August 1965, when the Beatles met Elvis at his Bel Air mansion. Beatles assistant Tony Barrow later revealed Paul was absolutely starstruck, perhaps the only time ever. He just kept nodding and saying, "Gear." The confident Beatle had vanished. Even more telling was what happened after. According to Lennon's assistant, Paul locked himself in his hotel bathroom for an hour. He practiced Elvis's speech and mannerisms, like he'd accessed sacred knowledge and needed to memorize every detail. When he emerged, something about him had permanently changed. Most shocking was Paul's private confession during a vulnerable moment at Abbey Road in 1968. He reportedly told producer George Martin, "Elvis is why I do what I do. Everything else is just details." This stunned Martin, who believed Paul's musical drive came from his mother's death. Behind closed doors, Paul kept a secret shrine of rare Elvis recordings and memorabilia. He treated those items with more reverence than his own gold records, revealed a former Wings member who glimpsed the collection in the mid-70s. Number 2. Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry is the complete package. "The only one I'd ever admit might be better than me at storytelling through song," Paul confessed in a shocking 1999 interview. His lyrics were perfect little 3-minute novels. "I spent my early career trying to write one song as good as Memphis, Tennessee." This wasn't casual admiration, it was obsession. When Roll Over Beethoven first blasted from a Liverpool record shop, 14-year-old McCartney's musical DNA changed forever. His childhood friend Ivan Vaughan revealed Paul created a special notebook just to transcribe Chuck's lyrics, word for word. Paul analysed how each verse advanced the story. Vaughan told a Beatles historian. He'd map characters, plot twists, emotional shifts. It was like he was decoding a secret language. This influence shines in McCartney's character-driven classics like Penny Lane and Eleanor Rigby. These songs feature vivid personalities straight from Berry's playbook. But fans never realized how deeply Chuck influenced Paul's revolutionary bass playing. McCartney reinvented bass by building on Berry's foundation, producer Rick Rubin revealed. Most bassists played simple root notes. Paul created counter melodies, like a second lead instrument. This came directly from studying Chuck's patterns. Their worlds collided in 1972 backstage at London's Rainbow Theatre. Berry initially dismissed Paul as just another English invasion guy before realizing who he was talking to. What happened next became rock legend. Unfazed, Paul began reciting obscure lyrics from Berry's deep cuts. Chuck's face changed completely, recalled a witness. He went from dismissive to moved. He ended up with his arm around Paul, sharing stories about those songs he'd never told anyone. Berry later told his manager that Beatle knows my catalogue better than I do. This cemented a lifelong mutual respect. Paul frequently called Chuck Rock's true poet laureate. The most shocking revelation came from George Martin. He revealed McCartney would bring Berry records to Beatles sessions. Paul would say, "This is how Chuck would approach it," Martin shared. Even during Sgt. Pepper, their most experimental period, he was still measuring himself against Berry's storytelling. This influence remains hidden in plain sight throughout McCartney's catalogue. But while this musical obsession shaped Paul profoundly, it was nothing compared to the vocal technique he learned from the flamboyant pioneer who would alter his entire approach to performance. Number 3. Little Richard. The polite McCartney we know today seems worlds apart from rock's most flamboyant screamer. Yet, Little Richard's influence permanently altered music history in ways few realize. "I practiced Richard's vocals until my throat was raw," Paul confessed to Rolling Stone in 1997. Something so liberating about how he let loose. This wasn't mere admiration, it was obsession. According to photographer Astrid Kirchherr, young Paul would lock himself in Hamburg bathrooms for hours. He'd scream Richard's lyrics until neighbours complained. The game changer came in 1962. The unknown Beatles shared a bill with Little Richard at Hamburg's Star Club. Paul was shaking like a leaf, recalled Pete Best, completely starstruck, almost paralysed. What happened next changed everything. Hamburg promoter Horst Fascher revealed Richard took an immediate liking to Paul. He pulled him aside after their set. Richard grabbed Paul and said, "Boy, you got the voice but ain't using it right." Then he showed him piano techniques no one had seen before. Richard told Paul, "If you're going to play rock and roll, honey, hit those keys like you're punching your worst enemy. When you sing, imagine your lungs are on fire and only screaming can put it out." This raw approach contradicted everything McCartney knew. The change was instant. Before Richard, Paul was the cute one with the pretty voice, claimed Star Club waitress Greta Weber. The next night, he was screaming like a man possessed. Regular customers left because they didn't recognize the band. This influence surfaces throughout Paul's career. That signature McCartney scream in "I'm Down," "Oh darling," and "Maybe I'm Amazed" is pure Little Richard. During sessions, Paul would often ask, how would Richard do this part, before unleashing his most powerful vocals. When Richard passed in 2020, Paul's public statement was measured, but insiders claim he was devastated. Paul locked himself away for hours, a source revealed. When he emerged, eyes red, he simply said, "Without him, I'm just a guy with a pretty voice. He taught me how to set myself on fire." Richard's influence wasn't just about screaming, it was about fearlessness. While the Beach Boys shaped the Beatles' harmonies, it was Little Richard who gave Paul McCartney his edge. Number 4. The Everly Brothers. When John and I first started singing together, we were directly trying to be the Everlys, Paul confessed in a 2014 BBC interview. This blueprint shaped music's most successful songwriting partnership. At 15, McCartney obsessively studied Everly Brothers records. According to friend Pete Shotton, he dissected their harmonies like a scientist. This influence moved straight to early Beatles hits like "Please Please Me." Those close harmonies weren't just inspired, they were deliberate recreations after 2 years of specific practice. The Everly Brothers made me understand the magic of two voices becoming one, Paul explained. Beyond musical impact, Don Everly gave crucial guidance during Beatlemania. His advice became McCartney's career mantra: true artists never chase the audience, they make the audience come to them. Even after Don's passing in 2021, Paul reportedly recorded a private tribute. It wasn't for release, but as a personal farewell. The Everlys gave Paul his vocal identity. Number 5. The Beach Boys. When Paul McCartney first heard the Beach Boys' harmonies in 1963, something profound clicked in his musical brain. Beatles insider Tony Barrow noted that Paul became obsessed with their vocal arrangements on Surfin' USA. He spent hours studying their perfect vocal blends. The Beach Boys were doing something magical with their voices, Paul told friends at Abbey Road. This admiration grew into one of music's most consequential rivalries. It produced legendary albums while pushing one genius to the edge of collapse. The turning point came in 1966 when Brian Wilson released Pet Sounds, inspired by Rubber Soul. McCartney was completely awestruck. At a London listening party, Paul reportedly played God Only Knows over 100 times in a row. "That's the greatest song ever written," he declared. "We've got to push ourselves further now." This sparked the Beatles' creation of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. They deliberately tried to surpass Wilson's masterpiece. When Sgt. Pepper topped Pet Sounds in acclaim and sales, something broke inside Brian Wilson. Wilson began working on his response, the Smile album. During this process, he suffered a devastating breakdown. This started a downward spiral lasting decades. The album remained unfinished. Most fans don't know how deeply this affected McCartney. His personal assistant revealed Paul carried tremendous guilt about Wilson's collapse. "Sometimes I wonder if we pushed too hard," McCartney confessed in 1968, "if our friendly competition broke Brian in some way." This guilt appeared in subtle tributes throughout McCartney's later work. The harmonies on Because and several Wings tracks deliberately echoed Wilson's arrangements. When Wilson finally completed Smile in 2004, McCartney publicly celebrated it as the lost masterpiece that changed everything. Privately, he expressed relief that Brian had finally overcome their competition-created demons. The Beach Boys' influence shows how great artists push each other to reach new heights. But sometimes the most profound influence comes not from contemporaries, but from the pioneers who first showed what was possible. Number 6, Buddy Holly. Without Buddy Holly, there would be no Beatles. Paul stunned audiences at his Rock Hall induction. "Everything we did was our attempt to be the Crickets. Even the name Beatles was our homage, another insect band." This wasn't mere admiration. Holly provided the complete blueprint for music's most influential band. The obsession began on Paul's 15th birthday, when he first heard That'll Be the Day. His brother Mike recalled how Paul wore out the record. He studied Holly's hiccuping vocals and innovative guitar work for hours. "Buddy floored me because he was the complete package," Paul confessed to biographer Barry Miles. "He wrote songs, sang lead, played guitar, and led the band. Nobody did that then. It showed me you could control your own musical destiny." The influence went beyond music. Paul adopted Holly's horn-rimmed glasses during the Hamburg days. According to Pete Best, he spent hours mimicking Holly's head movements and vocal tics. In 1976, McCartney quietly purchased Holly's entire song catalogue. Industry insiders expected him to exploit it for profit. Instead, Paul shocked them. "I didn't buy Buddy's songs to make money. His music raised me. Protecting it was the least I could do." This revelation explains McCartney's approach. From his rockabilly-influenced Beatles tracks to his insistence on creative control, Holly's influence is clear. Every time Paul performed, he channeled the spirit of the young Texan who died at 22. When Paul finally met Buddy's widow, Maria Elena, in 1976, the normally composed McCartney broke down. He repeatedly thanked her for everything Buddy gave to music. Someone gave him one of Holly's personal guitar picks. Witnesses say he whispered, "This means more than any Grammy ever could." From the Beach Boys' harmonies to Holly's artistic vision, these 6 musical obsessions formed McCartney's genius. But it was Holly who provided the master blueprint. His influence created the roadmap, guiding the Beatles from Liverpool obscurity to global domination. Paul McCartney's musical DNA isn't just a list of influences, it's the secret code behind history's most beloved songs. Yesterday carries Buddy Holly's Ghost. Helter Skelter channels Little Richard's raw power. What makes McCartney remarkable is how he changed these influences into something entirely new. He didn't copy Elvis, he reinvented him for the British invasion. George Martin once confided, Paul's greatest gift wasn't originality. It was making everything he loved feel completely original. The connections appear everywhere. All My Loving uses Chuck Berry's bass techniques. Here, There and Everywhere translates Beach Boys harmonies into Beatles language. Even Paul's stage movements came from studying Elvis footage. These influences show us the man behind the cute Beatle mask. We see someone who worshipped Little Richard's sexuality, someone who felt real guilt over Brian Wilson's breakdown. Rhodey Mal-Evans said before his death, Paul contains multitudes. He's built from the broken pieces of his heroes. Understanding these 6 musical obsessions makes McCartney's genius clearer, not smaller. He stood on giants' shoulders, then leaped higher than anyone thought possible. Listen closely to Hey Jude, and you'll hear the echoes that changed a Liverpool teenager into one of history's greatest songwriters.